thanks Piyush for having me here, and it has been like it is honorable for me to also present the session and share my experiences uh, with the aspiring folks that who are coming now for product management. So happy to take this session in this time. So hi guys, just want to take 5-10 minutes in introducing myself and tell more about how my journey has been so far. And then I'm going to talk about in the session that how product management role is different in a startup environment versus in a bigger company. Also, I would like to tell about some bit of a differences in the interview process of startups versus in a bigger company. So that is I wanted to highlight on in this session, and then later on I will open up the session for any question and answers that you guys must be having. So to tell you guys about me and my journey so far. So I graduated from IIT Bombay in 2015, and post that have been so I kind of really liked working in technology space, but I knew that I wanted to always take up a bigger picture in a technology company. So from that perspective, I stumbled upon this path of becoming a product manager. So I started my journey directly after college into early product management roles. So I joined a company called as Good Service, which was a Sequoia portfolio company, and there I was leading the backend fulfillment side of products. That app used to do was get anything over chat kind of thing, which is like something what Haptic and Dunzo these days do. So that was in 2015 that I started. Unfortunately, we couldn't survive for a long time, and then I moved on to a startup called as Hello English, which was a pure technical product, and it was a app-based product in which people used to learn English from their vernacular languages. So we were present in 23 languages, and there had a very good stint of about 2-3 years where I worked on different aspects of products, which is like improving the acquisition strategy of the product, or moving the engagement of the product, or improving the retention of the product. And later on, which I recently did with them, was I tried to improve the monetization of the app, which is basically through in-app subscriptions. So our app had a freemium model essentially. So some users could take the content for free, and some users need to and to get some more content unlocked, you need to do in-app purchase, and then you will be able to take all the content and other advanced features inside the application. So that was my journey with Hello English, and then in between I was a product manager in Paytm as well. So in Paytm it was a typical product manager role where you are discussing with the vendors, you're discussing with the business teams and category managers, and then trying to get the requirements done, and also then essentially think about what has to be built from the user perspective, and then try to build them along with the designers, engineers, and try to grow them later on with the growth team essentially. So that was a very typical product manager role that I had in Paytm. I was a part of honest payment vertical, which is the payments which happen in on the Paytm platform, which is like utilities, electricity, water, gas bill payments that you must have seen on the app Paytm platform. And also for some bit of time I was working in the transportation payments vertical, which is like bus ticket booking and metro ticket booking, all of those payments. I also worked on a product called as auto payment in Paytm. So that has been with the journey with Paytm. Currently I am a global product manager for in Oyo, and I'm in the supply and finance team. So I have about 20 engineering folks that are working with me currently. And what we are trying to do is like we sit at the top of the funnel from in the supply onboarding side. Like our supply gets first of all discovered, and then our BDM, business development managers, and different sources gets the leads to us, and then the BDM tries to work on those leads to onboard them onto our platform, and then the hotels gets essentially onboarded, and then it gets into operations. So I take care of the first top of the funnel part in Oyo currently. And so essentially what does that mean is like I have backend system through which the leads are. There is a partner page through which the partners can come and register themselves. So that has been the journey so far, and it has been really enriching. So I had explored a lot of horizontal things into, like, I worked in edtech, I have worked in payment fintech, I've also worked now in operations and some of those things. In terms of product side capabilities, I have worked in retention as well and monetization also. So in Hello English, I was able to improve the revenue of the application by nearly 5 to 10x in about 4 to 5 months period of time, using multiple different kind of hypothesis testing and through A/B testing, and creating different kind of packages and value-added services for the consumer there. So that has been the journey. So from so when Piyush actually came to me and what we were thinking, like what I should talk about more in the session, was essentially that I have such a varied experience into different working in different environments. Why not talk about that particular experience? So from that perspective, I thought that I would to tell you about. I try to structure those around in the session. So I will like to go deeper into those experiences. So first of all, before even going into what the session is about and what the material is, so just wanted to get an understanding from the class. Can anyone tell me, like, what is their understanding of a product manager role is, and what is the key important thing for a product manager?
To accomplish the user's requirement, a product manager is said to be like who is connecting the user's requirement to the development team or all the stakeholder that is going to like developing the things for user, to connecting them in a better manner. So that's what I think a product manager do.
Right, Habas, you are almost correct there, but I just want to add 1 or 2 points more to what you just defined. It's you are the voice of the customer inside the company, but essentially what you don't do is, like, your customer has told that I want this particular feature inside the application, and that is the very immediate need for me. Please build that for me. You won't be listening directly to what they are saying verbatim. You would be finding out the underlying trends among, like, what is the user essentially wants, like uska problem kis solution se solve ho sakta hai, and how can I solve the problem for the larger user base, and then you collectively take that requirement and get that built with the engineering team. Just wanted to add that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So actually, that was the first thing that I wanted to tell you about, like, what is a product manager. You essentially pointed out that the product manager typically sits in the center of the company. It is like at the center of design, tech, and business majorly, and you are essentially a coach or a facilitator who tries to liaise with these individual teams and then essentially get the user requirements built. The user can be consumer, the user can be your internal stakeholders. So for example, here at Oyo, currently what my role is, the end user that I am creating products for is the hotel partners or my business development manager. So those are my users here. In Paytm, my users were the end consumers, like you guys who pay on the Paytm platform. In Hello English, my users were learners. So I am so that is what a product manager does is, like, the first important thing is he has to be user centric as an person. He has to empathize with the user. He has to think from the user's perspective, and then he should try to build those features for the users. So how does a typical day look like? I just wanted to showcase the day in Oyo that I have. Typically, it is filled with a lot of meetings. It's 60 to depending upon which stage of product or sprint we are. I hope you have heard this word sprint a lot of times. So in the starting of sprint, the product managers actually try to close down on multiple requirements. So at that point of time, 60 to 70% of the time might be going in meeting people and different kind of stakeholders to get those requirements fixed, and try to get buy-ins from different stakeholders that once you build this feature, this is how it's going to be shipped into the market. So we get those buy-ins by having those meetings. meetings. And after that, once those meetings are fixed, it's essentially you write product requirement documents so that you can structure whatever has been your discussion so far with the different stakeholders, and you clearly articulate what all are the requirements of the consumer in a piece of paper, and then essentially get that built with the engineering and the design team. So that is what is there. So the meeting time will be typically, most of the time you will be talking to different people. So you can assume 30 to 60% of the time always goes in meetings and meeting different people. It might be meeting your end consumer, talking to end consumer. It won't be your responsibility. It depends on place to place. That in a startup you might be directly talking to the user, but in a bigger company you might be having a sales team that tells you that this is the requirement from the consumer end. So this is what typically your day look like in a product manager role. Then I just wanted to clearly tell you about like what is a product manager in the early stage startup versus a bigger startup such as, so I would classify early stage startup as seed stage or series A stage, which is like pre-product market fit, or just who have achieved product market fit. And the later stage products are series B plus companies, series C plus companies, which have already got some structure in place. So early stage startups, the structure, depending upon which startup you join, you might be the only product manager in the company also. So the main role of that product manager essentially is like the girl here is doing. He's most of the time spending the time with the CEO discussing about what is the product strategy look like, what next set of features we should prioritize. And a CEO by definition essentially tries to think from all the perspectives, and he typically tried to go all on the place. So what a product manager role here majorly becomes is in trying to keep a control on him, essentially, that this is a product strategy, this is our engineering team is currently doing for next 20 days or 30 days, and we shouldn't move move essentially from what we are building. So that is the major situation, challenging situation that is there for a product manager in a startup. The other thing is, once you have achieved product market fit, what I mean by product market fit is essentially your product users are liking on the to come use your product essentially. So you might be seeing good retention rates in your product, or you might be seeing good engagement rates in your product. Now what you are trying to do is like, how can I improve this particular behavior, or like how can I monetize this particular behavior? So you just try to find out a lot of opportunities using data that which can give you opportunities in terms of improving your product so that you can improve the core metric that you want. So for example, in Hello English, we wanted to improve our paying users per DAU. Paying users per DAU is essentially keeping the same user base. We wanted to monetize those user base more. So for that, what we thought is like in iOS, the DAU was small, but the purchasing power was very high at that point of time. So we tried to replicate that behavior, also use some other kind of hacks and product strategies around that, and we tried to improve the monetization. So that is a major role of a product manager in a startup. The attributes of a product manager in a startup will be like a person who will survive, who will be basically more suitable for a product manager in a startup. He should be very agile. He should have a probably kind of a hacker mindset, which is like, I will say कि जुगाड़ू होना चाहिए थोड़ा बंदा उसमें in a startup. And you should be basically, so in a startup the role might go a little haphazard also. It might not be a very true product management kind of a role also, because sometimes you might be also helping your sales team getting their thoughts structured, or sometimes you might be helping your business team. You might be working on different kind of projects, but if you know the basics about product management, then you can keep your focus more towards this particular skill. But there is a very high likelihood also that you might be roped into different parts of the product also. You might be building the operations, or in a typical startup, what happens, you have to wear multiple hats. So product manager typically has to do that some of the situations. It's all about what kind of expectation that you set with the company essentially. And the one drawback that I see in being a product manager in a smaller company is like, in your early careers, no one is there to mentor you. There might be a CEO who has background in the product management field, then he might be able to give you some bit of a flavor. But if he comes from a sales or a business background, or if he comes from a different kind of a background. So then he won't be able to have those real concepts about product management. So you're majorly on your own essentially. That is one drawback of being a product manager in a startup. The one upside that I feel is there is immense scope for learning and experimentation, and then there is no one to tell you that, hey, you should just work on this particular problem, and you should focus your energy only solving monetization. It's open playground for you to experiment and understand user, and then try to build things from the user. If it's working, it's moving the metric, it's improving the business, it's solving the user's problem, then you're more than welcome to do that. So while I do agree that in bigger companies also, once your role gets bigger, you you are given full freedom and into what your domain is as to what you can be building. But startups also provide that kind of a freedom early in your career. That is what just I wanted to highlight here. So that is the product management in early stage startups. Uh, Second, I just want to focus on product management in larger firms. So in larger firms, as I earlier also mentioned, how my day looked like in Oyo and how my day looked like in Paytm. So it is more about so in so just wanted to highlight more in the startup point that there can be some situations where you might to go deeper into some of the other roles. So basically, your design might not be very well versed with. They might not be that I would say well versed with the user's problem, or they're not generally well versed in their skills also. So you might not have to go have a deeper engagement with those stakeholders. But in a bigger company, like so every person, the design team will be the expert in their field, the business team will be expert in their field, the technical team will be expert in their field. So there the role majorly becomes of coaching and facilitating discussions between these teams, and essentially the point that Abhas also mentioned, just bringing the user's perspective that what has to be built, and structuring the entire chaos that has been going, structuring that and discussing with the stakeholders, facilitating those discussions, and just not so there was one typical thing that product managers early in their career, some typically who come from a technical background also, what they try to do is they try to go deeper into what the technical team is trying to do. While it's good to understand and learn how the technical team is solving the problems, but it might also be problematic that if you try to do the solutioning part for them, what you can do is ask hard questions to them essentially in your journey, and by those questions what you can do is uh, make them think the solution, and you shouldn't be spoon feeding them the solutions essentially, because engineers in a way don't like that. Also, I would say engineers, but other kind of folks also, like designers and business folks, if someone is an expert in their field, no one wants to listen the solutions from a product manager who is a generalist. So what you should do is give your perspective deeper and about the user, about the problem, and try to ask intriguing questions from them, so that they come to the solution part by themselves. So product manager in a large term team companies is somewhat of that kind of a role, and it is majorly yeah. So typically, how in larger firms, I would say, but the commonality between startups versus bigger companies, majorly the role is very much same. It's like you have to solve the user's problem. You have to be a structured person who brings structure into the chaos. And what you have to do is you have to communicate clearly. You have to be a stakeholder manager, and you have to be a people's person essentially. So that is the commonality between both of those roles. But depending upon depending upon the skill set of the team, there might be some good depth essentially which might be there in the startup. So that is there. Large companies essentially what they help in, you can find very good mentors in a large company. You can create a good network of product managers in a bigger company, and and also what large company helps you provide is a lot of the solutioning, lot of the product insight has already been captured by the company. So what you can do is they have done the work for 5-6 years on that particular product. What you can do is learn very fast as to why that particular product was built in 2-3 months, and then try to gain those insights so it's like learning on others experiments. In startup it's like learning by your own experiments. So that is the main broad difference, essentially, I would say, in product management between those two forms.
So Akshay, so you talked about the role in a startup and a bigger company.
Right.
I want to actually dig. I mean, I'm not sure if you are going to dig into it at a later part of this conversation, but I just wanted to understand. So talking about metrics, how is how is metrics tracking different in startup when compared to a larger company?
Okay, Rahul, that's a good question. I would like to answer it in a more broader way. Metrics is different for different domains, first of all. So, like Paytm as a company might be tracking GMV as a metric, or revenue metrics. They just want to improve the number of transactions on the platform.
Right.
Where in Hello English, what we are trying to track is majorly retention on the platform. Are our user engaged on the platform? What is the paying users per DAU? So the metric that everyone chases it depends on 2-3 factors. One, what is the core value proposition of your product, essentially? So for example, Swiggy might be tracking orders. What Facebook might be tracking is engagement and time spent scrolling on the feed. So those will be the metrics that different kind of platforms will be tracking. Startups versus a bigger company, I wouldn't say there is a difference. Everyone is very metric oriented. Product management as a role itself is a metric oriented role. So there is no difference in that terms. What I would say is, in a startup, it is about the culture of the company. How much depth or value do they give to the metrics? How much metric oriented they are? So at Hello English, we were very metric oriented. Essentially, I was the single product manager there, so I am basically a very metric oriented person. So I try to incorporate that role thing more, because otherwise it becomes the opinion of CEO, or becomes the opinion of the engineering that we are trying to build. So there is no difference as such in terms of that. Uh, Startup versus a bigger company. In a bigger company, what it might be, even though we know about the metric, there might be some scenarios where there can be pressure from the top that we have to build this. Then the metric kind of thing is, you can debate 50 to 60% of your time about the metric, but there might be 40% of the instances where there might be some feature request from the top that you have to build. So that is the difference, broadly, I would say, about the metrics. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that answered my question. So I have a follow-up to that. Just one small thing. So I mean, so we know that there are a lot of framework around the metrics tracking, right?
Mhm.
So when you talk about startups and bigger companies,
Mhm.
so is there any structure? I mean, as a product manager, so I mean, I am also a product manager
Mhm.
myself, and so as a product manager, do we need to keep that framework in mind, or like it is okay to sometimes go with, I mean, you know that something is your KPI and basically you have to track the metrics around that.
Mhm.
So is it okay to go bluntly, or like is it
So
always basically, yeah.
answer that question in this way, like, metrics are enablers. They are not the end. What essentially is getting everyone is seeing. It's like consumer sees your application. Consumer pays money for you for application, and internally what you discuss with your founder is like, we want to create these features. What metrics help you is what they help you in is prioritization, and just having a sense in your argument that, like, why you are building this. It also helps you build that conviction, like, this particular feature will improve the metric by 40% versus this particular feature will improve the metric by 5%, and I want to focus on which metric that improves which the particular thing by 40%. Now the definition of framework specifically, if so I, as again I said, it's a enabler, and it's not an end thing that you want to be achieve. So everyone has come up with some kind of a framework which is best suitable for their company, and they try to sharpen that particular framework for themselves. But what I would say is that learning the framework and trying to apply on some other company, that won't work most of the times, because the use cases, the user segment, the problem, the resource constraints, and the behavior essentially will change specifically.
Right.
So those learnings will have to be unlearned. So what major thing is there is how structurally that you think, and how in depth you are able to think from the first principles.
Right. Yeah, yeah, got it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So I would just like to go more about how the interview process typically looks like in a startup versus in a bigger company. So in startups, typically, now what I'm talking about startups is, I would say, again, my definition of startup will be seed stage and the early stage startup, where there is no specific product management function already in place. Nowadays, in Series B startups and also some of the Series A startups, they follow very rigorous product management practices. So interview process for those functions where there are good head of products essentially will be mimicking that the process which is there in the bigger company. But taking the case of where there is just a startup founder and it's a very early stage, the interview process will typically look like this. So you will be talking to all the founders or maybe the head of departments which are there in the company, and then majorly the decision there is like how passionate you are for the space. Like, are you aligned to solve the problem for the consumers which are wanted to, so basically you should be happy to solve that particular problem. You should have some of the discussions will be around like how much you know about this particular space, and if you want to, so you basically you need to showcase here that you are very much motivated to solve this particular problem. Then the focus can be more on the previous work experience and the cultural fitment essentially. Like, will you, so cultural fitment, they won't be asking you specific questions about cultural fitment. They will be judging you by the way you can have a conversation and how your previous work experience will have been. But it will be more around what your previous work experience has been, and if they can find some synergy from your previous work experience with the products that they are trying to build. The synergy might be the domain synergy, that you have worked in fintech domain as a business person. Now you want to move to product management, so you know about fintech space, you know about the user. Why not use those insights that you have, the user insights, and apply them to product management here? So that is what they are essentially trying to look for in your previous work experience. And also they just want to check from the balance skill perspective, like, will you be able to work with all the stakeholders? Will you be able to work with the engineers, or will the person will be able to talk to the designers? Or generally, is the person a very people's person, or will he be someone who will be a good team player? And again, that comes into cultural fitment. But it's a balance skill perspective and structured thinking that they look for the most in a startup. You can expect to have some case studies or guesstimates kind of a thing scenario, also case studies, product case studies, depending upon situation to situation. So that part I have just covered in the interview process for the bigger companies essentially. So how the interview process in a bigger company look like? So I would just like to focus more upon the lateral PM or SPM interviews, typically interviews which happen in OYO or Flipkart or all of those places, or startups like Cred or Misho kind of places. So the interview process is more on structured thinking via case studies. So it will be typically you might be going through 3-4 rounds depending upon the number of people that they want to interact with, but you can expect 3 to 4 rounds, or it might go to 5 to 6 rounds. So like in OYO I had around 6 rounds of interviews, and those every interview might be for 1 to 1.5 hours. Depending upon your discussion, it might take also more sometime, but typically they try to wrap it in 1 to 1.5 hours. So your initial first part is getting to know the interviewer and getting to know yourself. So first of all, it is a very simple question that they ask, like, tell me about your past experience. Here essentially what they're trying to look for is like, what has your experience been so far? How complex a product that you have solved? How complex the team size that you have handled, or stakeholders, number of stakeholders that you have managed in the past? So that is what they are looking for in the previous experience part essentially. So typically you might expect like that will go on for about, there will be some cross questioning on your previous work experience. They might ask you to go into some depth about what specific metric that you tried to improve and how you improved it. Work on that thing case by case, essentially, like what is the most needle mover that you released in your product that helped the metric improve to such number, and like how would you have done those things differently now you are an outsider. So that is what the typical discussion will look like in the previous work experience interview process. It will be 30% of the time will be on this. Then it will be the next part is 70% of the problem will be of the interview process will be on problem solving. What that might look like is they will be coming up with very ambiguous statements such as improve WhatsApp, or other thing is if you are, there will be some role playing kind of interview questions, like imagine you are a product manager at Uber, and what you are trying to do is trying to launch child pickup and drop services, and how will you go about it, what will be a pricing strategy will be, how will be your go to market strategy look like. So there can be questions around that. I will cover the type of questions in the little later part. I just wanted to tell more about also the early PM and the PM interviews. I don't know like if it will be very much useful for you, but typically folks who are coming from just without an MBA background or are early in their career are highly technical people but want to move to product management. They will might be focusing more on your technical skills also. Technical skills as a product manager, what they might ask you is like, hey, we want to create this app. How will the backend architecture, what do you think that will look like? What will be the DB schema structure, essentially, what will looking like? That's a technical PM kind of a, I would say, interview round. And if you're very early in your career, then it will be more focused on your analytical skills, and it'll be like which product that you like the most, and let's try to improve it. And for post MBA kind of people, it will be more around very ambiguous problems that you face, and just try to go very into depth of solving that particular ambiguous case studies. So typical questions that can come, interview questions that can come in a bigger form. First of all, obviously, tell about your past experience. I've already highlighted that. There can be very basic case question that which most of you all have already also seen, like metric has fallen by some percentage and you need to investigate the reason. So it might be like Swiggy's orders are down by 30%. What will you do about it? So that might be the question. Or there might be questions like improve WhatsApp. And there might be question like very abstract question like how will you make a better airport? So for example, at Oyo, I was asked this question that imagine you are a product manager at Uber, you want to go into child pickup and drop service. How will you go about it? So those are the kind of questions that you get. And I would also tell you like what are the typical steps that you should take to tackle it. So every question is that they are asking now in the interview is like they just want you to check that how like if you are able to think from the first principles, try to first of all just try to go very horizontally like what has been there, and try to understand and analyze every perspective and then come out of a solution. So that is what they are looking at. I would tell you step by step essentially what they are trying to look at. So what worked for me essentially in those interviews essentially is like, first of all, I will like to clarify everything in the question. Like if they say improve WhatsApp, what does improvement mean? Does improvement and you also should be telling here that these are the user segments that I feel are currently there in WhatsApp, and for and what product strategy that WhatsApp is currently taking is what they are trying to improve engagement and more time of people chatting inside the application. That is, so you need to take assumptions essentially, and it should be like you take assumptions and then you should validate that with the interviewer that, hey, I think this is the scenario, I am assuming this, what do you think about it? So those are the ways. So clarify everything in the question, like now how will you make a better airport? What is a better airport? Like do we want to improve the, like do we want to, should there be very less people while the people are checking in, or do we want the lead time from check-in to boarding the flight should be very small, or like what is it like? What do you mean by essentially? What is the definition of betterment? First of all, you should try to focus on that, and then what you should focus on is like what is betterment for different type of users. In airport there might be elderlies. Betterment for them might be like, I don't want escalators, I want everything to be flat, and I should be able to reach the flight by walking very less essentially. So travelators for those guys will be a solution for old age people. But betterment for a person like us, it might be like, I want to be as late as possible coming to the airport. Why do I need to come 45 minutes before? So betterment for me is different versus a old age person is a different thing, and someone who is not very technical is also different. So you need to think from user perspective, like what is betterment essentially. Then clarify everything, assume something. Then after that, you should take a step back. After you have asked you should be typically asking around 5 to 10 questions to the interviewer about the scenario. And then you should take a step back and lay out a structure essentially. Like, here is what I think about it. These are the user segments I think, and this is what I want to improve. And if I want to improve this particular metric, what is the thing that essentially moves that particular metric inside the application? So you need to just classify those things, lay out a tree structure, and then after that you just try to ask specific questions around like, so for example, if it comes out that to improve WhatsApp, what you need to do is improve the time spent chatting. So then you should ask the question, what is the current time for this particular user base? You should try to find like which of the, so once you have just shortlisted what is the user segment and what is the metric, then you just check like where is the opportunity lie. Is it in WhatsApp groups that I should focus more on, or is it like on one-on-one chats that I should focus more on? You should ask specific questions. How does this particular metric look like in one-on-one versus in a group? So keep asking very specific questions, and try to give them reason why you're asking for those specific questions also. If you're not able to get the answer for those questions, then fill the gaps by assumptions. Then after that, you should analyze everything and then form very strong opinions about what you want to build and recommend solutions. Then after that, after you come up with the recommendations and solutions, they might be the next question that will be like, you must be coming with 15s of ideas or 10s of ideas. How will you pick top 3 of those ideas? So here the simple thing is like, you should try to check try to think hard from the user perspective, and you shouldn't assume that there are resource constraints. You can assume that there are enough resources available to you, but you should think from the user perspective, what is the more impactful thing, and essentially you should try to check like what is more impactful and probably might not take that much of an effort and invest essentially. So that is what your approach should be towards prioritization also. So that is what the interview process look like in a bigger company, and then how you should tackle these questions essentially. So I would just try to take a pause here and check like if there are any questions essentially so far.
Hi, Akshay.
Hi.
Avas side.
Yeah, hi Abbas.
Akshay, you have said like try to ask questions,
Right.
and then validate it with some assumptions.
Right.
And then finally, you have said that as a solution, what you can do is come up with the user segment, what the probable user segment as per me.
Mm-hmm.
So will it be a good idea to say discussing the user segment at that point of time without?
It should be first at the first level only. You should be talking about user first. So for example, here in the question, imagine you are a product manager at Uber, you want to go into child pickup. Now child can be a toddler, child can be a very young person, kid who is in the first to second standard or fifth standard, child can be a teenager as well.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to clarify what is child essentially. And then also you should also list down like child pickup service. Then after that, who is the end consumer? End consumer is child, and who is the first level consumer? Parent is booking a cab for you.
Got it.
Right. So you should just clarify first of all who are the stakeholders involved, who is the end consumer involved. That you should just broadly lay it out. Like for me, child is this,
Hmm.
and then parent can be a working parent can be using this particular service. Like you should put assumptions like so. For me, like I would say for this particular question, toddler is a very risky segment because everyone has trust issues with toddlers, but you can go deeper into teenagers or first to fifth standard kind of kids where there is relatively less risk involved. They're already going in their school buses already.
Hmm.
So there is a limited trust gap. There is always a trust gap that you need to solve for. And the parents the segment that you want to target is parents who don't have time, essentially. So both are working parents, probably they are in the tier one cities. So those are the kind of parents that you're targeting.
Hmm.
So that is the first thing that thing should be coming to your mind is like who is your end consumer and what is the problem that they are facing, and then try to come up from solutions from their perspective, essentially, rather than saying okay, for the child pickup service we should keep a back seat where the toddler can come. Okay, why do you need to solve it for the toddler? First of all, solve
Yeah.
it for a teenager. First of all, you don't need to do any changes inside the cab. Essentially you can just do some of the changes inside the application, but the operation part won't take so many changes.
Okay. Okay.
So
Got it.
from that perspective, I was saying like first of all you should go deeper into uh, the user segment. That will give you more insights into behavior and that will refine your solutions better
Great.
rather than going later.
So finally, while proposing a solution at the at the last of the section,
Hmm.
so will it see we can't or sometimes we can or sometimes we can't come up with the good solution at that point of time.
Hmm.
So telling a solution that is not going to impact that much at that point of time, will it be affecting our interview
No, so
performance?
I would say like it won't affect that much, but what they are looking at is how smart and good questions are you able to ask,
Yeah.
how much are you able to go into different kind of user segments, how are you able to break the problem down and structure it, and then what are the kind of questions and assumptions you are taking. So that is the more thing that they're looking at, because in real life also in the product manager role that is the main bread and butter of your daily thing that you
Mhm.
are so for solutioning there will be hundreds of people who will be giving you very good ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but having said that, it is good like I haven't personally observed personally seen, but companies like Google, etc., all of those places, they are brownie points for uh, providing very good solutions also. Like you, they also think how creatively are you able to think. So that is there, but I would say major focus is on the structuring and the analytical ability and the clarifying questions part. That is the major thing. Like they want to check how you are thinking and not what you are thinking.
Okay. Got it, Akshay. Thank you. Thank you.
So this is basically, I just want to solve a very basic question, which is like there in the screening kind of interviews typically, like metric has fallen by X%, and how will you go about it? So for that, this is the kind of structure that you should look at. It's like for let's say if, the question is 30 you have seen that 30% of the orders have fallen in Swiggy. What do you do about it? So first of all, you need to break it down, like who are the stakeholders that affect your orders. It might be from the restaurant side, there can be problem. It can be from the consumer side, on the mobile application there can be a problem, or it can be at the delivery side there can be a problem. So at the delivery side, you check that if in a certain region is the turnaround time or delivery time gone to very high numbers. So because of that, there might be very less orders because the delivery experience is going down. That's why the orders is going down. Or there might be some supply side issue that for example, there might be some very less restaurants visible, or restaurants are closed down in certain geography or in certain cuisine which is very popular for the users, or in certain category. So that's why the restaurants are less visible to the consumer, and hence the orders are less. That can be one line of thought. The other line of thought is on the consumer app itself. You just check the number of orders on app per user. If you are not able to find out anything at the supply or delivery side, you can go directly into consumer also. Then check the entire funnel. It's like the user comes on the application. and then it clicks on the restaurant. It just, and then after that it adds the product into their cart, and then finally selects a payment mode and pay. So what you need to do is like look at different kind of metrics and drop offs in this particular funnel. So for that, you can ask about that if the clicks per DAU have gone down, or unique add to cart per DAU has gone down, or then so that is the something, or you can probably also ask the questions like, is the average visits per user per session has gone down, or app opens itself might have gone down. So those are the different kind of things that you can ask on. You need to just structurally ask like, this is the funnel, and then first of all I want to ask like, how many users are coming on the application, how many users are clicking, how many users are adding to the cart, and then you will be able to see where the drop off is typically, like from the normal place. So what you might be coming like, there might be some payment mode which is not very popular, but that has got the success rate of that particular payment mode is low. So that can be one scenario for which, in case your orders are going down. So those are the different uh, things that can be there, which can affect the order. What essentially they are trying to look at is how creatively you are able to classify different things, which factors which essentially improve your metric, and then break it down and checking every piece, like where the uh, met number has fallen. So, and they might be also for in the end, essentially there will be a situation that you might be able to figure out that it's a payment mode situation. Then you might be checking that there is a 20% drop in UPI payments. Essentially, success rates, there is a 20% drop in that, but orders have fallen by 30%. So that there is another factor which is there in playing in the order. So what you need to do look at is check at other factors also, which can contribute to this 10% drop. Or you might be just coming, okay, it's a payment problem completely. Okay, fine, you have solved the case successfully. So those are the different things that you should look at in trying to solve this particular question.
So thanks a lot, Akshay, for taking our time and conducting a session for us. It was really helpful, really insightful, and yeah, we would love to have you once again for more such interesting sessions.
Thanks a lot, Piyush, for having me. Thanks a lot, guys. You the question that you asked were really insightful for me also. So
Thank you.
looking forward to having more conversation.